Component variants are a powerful way to define different states for a single element. With scroll variants, we can take that same power and tie it to scroll position, triggering smooth animations between the states of a component as visitors move through the page. In this lesson, I'll show you how to animate between variants based on scroll position to create more immersive, story-driven experiences. For this lesson, we're going to continue on with that same project file that we've been working on in the past few lessons, but if you don't already have it, you can grab the remix link from the description below. So here we're going to head to the 4th page of this project, and you'll find our scroll variants page here. And I just want to walk you through the anatomy of how I've set up this document. It's a pretty basic layout. We've got this iPhone here, which is a component, and within that component, we're going to have the screen change a few times as we scroll down. But we want the screen to change as we scroll from this block of text down to this block of text, down to this block of text. And each one of these is set to 100 VH for its height, so that way it takes up the entire screen in the browser, no matter how tall the browser window is. But zooming out a bit, here you get the idea. We've got this extra long stack of these text frames, and then we've got this iPhone floating here. And if I preview this and I scroll down, you'll notice that we scroll right past the phone. Now, we're going to want to make this sticky so that it stays in the same spot on the screen as the text on the right-hand side continues to scroll by. So let's get that dialed in first. I'm just going to go back, and with this iPhone frame selected, I'm going to head over here and switch the position type from relative to sticky. If you're not familiar with sticky positioning, I've got a great lesson that I created for you in the Framer Fundamentals course. So go check that out if you haven't watched it already. And now that we have the position of this set to sticky, it's going to stick to the top of its parent frame, which is this big frame here, which is just a horizontal stack that has the phone in it and then has that stack of text frames next to it. So I'll preview this again, Command P on my Mac, and as I scroll now, when the top of its parent frame reaches the top of the viewport, it sticks, and the other layers continue to scroll until we get to the bottom of that parent frame, and then everything continues scrolling together. So that's the gist of sticky positioning here. Because again, we want this to stay on the screen for long enough that we can actually see it changing. If we scroll past it and then it changes, that doesn't do anyone any good. So for this particular example, sticky positioning is very key. So I'm going to go back here, and the next most important thing in order to cycle through a set of variants for this phone component is to have a set of variants for this phone component. Right now, if I double click into this phone component, we just have this one primary variant. I've already populated it with a few different images, but what I want is a few different variants where each variant shows a different image, because then we can cycle through those variants as we scroll. So to create our second variant, I'm just going to select the primary variant here. I'm going to click here to add a new variant. And for good measure, I'll click again to add a third variant, just so that way I have all three set up sort of ahead of time. And then on this second one, I'm going to take the screen 1 image, which is the image that we see on top of everything. And I'm going to come down here and I'm just going to reduce the opacity all the way down to 0. Rather than setting the visibility to none, because we can animate opacity changing, we can't animate visibility being on or off because it's going to click on or click off. Opacity, on the other hand, opacity has a value. We can animate a value. So now that we have opacity set to 0 for this image, I'll go to the third variant. I'll do the same thing, lower that same image down to 0% opacity. And I'm also going to grab the image under it and lower that one to 0% opacity as well. And I can do that extra quickly by just tapping 0 on the keyboard. A single tap of 0 will give you a 0% opacity, and if you tap it again, it'll go back to 100% opacity. So that's a very nifty shortcut there. So here we go. Now we have 3 variants. We have this first one with one image, second one with another image, third one with a third image. Cool, so we're just about halfway there. Let's go back to our main page here. And now that this component has several variants, we can come over here to the effects panel. And when we go to add a new effect, we have the option of choosing scroll variant, which is actually disabled if you select a component that has no variants within it. So the first order of business is create the variants. Otherwise, you won't be able to add this effect in the first place. So when I add the scroll variant effect, we get the usual triggers that we got with our other scroll-based effects. We have on scroll, which means are we scrolling or not scrolling? We have layer in view, which means trigger this when the layer comes into view in the viewport. And then we have section in view, which is going to give us a bit more flexibility because with section in view, we can have several sections correspond with several variants. And since we have 3 here, that's exactly what we want to do. I'm going to switch to section in view, but I have no sections on this page, so I can't actually choose a section yet. I've got to go and turn each one of these text boxes into a section. So that way the top edge of each text box means something to the browser as we scroll. So with this first one selected, I'm going to scroll down on the properties panel and I'm going to add a scroll section. And you can name this whatever you want. I'm going to name it feature 1. That's the name that I had before. But as long as you know what the names mean, you can name these things whatever you want. I'm going to do the same here for the second section. I'm going to click and add a scroll section named feature 2. Then I'm going to scroll down and do the third one, come down here, and you probably guessed it, add a scroll section called feature 3. Cool. So now that these scroll sections actually exist, we can come back here to our component. We can come back here to our scroll variant effect, and we can choose which section we want to display which variant. So for feature 1, for that first section here that I named feature 1, we want to show the very first variant. And things will be a bit more clear here if you name your variants within the component. It's not a requirement, but the more variants you have, the more valuable a good naming convention is going to be here. But since mine don't really have explicit names, I'm just going to choose variant because I know that that's the first one. Then I'm going to choose add section and choose my second one, feature 2, which is going to correspond with variant 2. And then the third section, which is called feature 3, which is going to correspond with variant 3. There we go. So we've got the gist of the setup here. Coming up to the top, we do want replay turned on. So that way, as we scroll up and down, it'll go 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, etc., back and forth. And then for viewport, we get to decide where the top of the section specifically is going to trigger the variant to change. So in section 1, when the top of section 1 reaches which part of the viewport, top, center, or bottom, is it going to trigger that switch over from variant to variant? If we wait until the section gets to the top of the viewport, we'll have to scroll pretty far before anything changes. So let's actually take a look at that. Let's see if that is even the way to go. So I'm going to press Command P again to go into preview mode. And as I scroll down, there's that filter section. When it hits the top of the viewport, it's going to set that first variant, which actually was the variant that I already had visible. So it doesn't look like anything's happening here with the first one, at least until we switch to the second one and then come back. So let's keep moving. We're going to scroll down to the second one. Now the top of that section is probably right about here. It hasn't hit the top of the viewport yet, so nothing's changed. But when it does, there we go. When the top of the section hit the top of the viewport, section 2 triggered variant 2. And if we keep going further down until the top, there's the switch. So it does happen pretty late. And if we're scrolling backwards, it happens pretty early, right? Because we're switching to that second variant before we can even see the text that corresponds with that second variant, right? Section 2, second variant, section 1, first variant. So this is kind of awkward timing here just a little bit. So let's fix that. I'm going to go back, and rather than having those trigger when the section reaches the top of the viewport, I'm going to have it trigger when the section reaches the middle of the viewport. I think that is going to solve all of our problems, or at least be a very happy medium. So again, Command P on my Mac, scroll down. At this point, we should be loading that variant 1, which we can't tell because variant 1 was already there. But as we keep going and going and going, there we go. See, that's the moment where this user-friendly text box, which is, again, 100 VH, is hitting the middle of the viewport. So that invisible barrier is probably right here. And as we keep scrolling, we can see that share comes into view, the text comes into view at pretty much the same time as its section hits the middle of the viewport and triggers that image to switch. So that definitely seems like more of a happy medium, because as we get the text coming into view, we get the top of the section triggering the switch of the image on the left-hand side. So that is much, much better. And a little troubleshooting tip for you: if your invisible sections are making it a little mysterious if things are happening at the right time, what you can do is just add a fill temporarily. I like to do so at a reduced opacity, so things look kind of normal. And now I can see where the top of this section meets this section, and I can see where the top of this one meets it if I add a fill to this as well. So now we can see visually that it's when the section below hits the vertical center of the viewport that's when this is happening. So this is happening exactly as it should. And then down here, same deal. We hit that vertical center, and that is where things are getting triggered. And you can go back, and me personally, I would just hit undo a few times to get rid of those fills. And there you have it. Scroll variants let us turn scrolling into interactions that drive components. It's a clean way to tie motion to context and tell a story as visitors move down the page. That's it for this one. I'll see you in the next one.